Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Many Australian business owners face retirement in the next decade or so. Selling's an option, of course, but there are plenty who plan to hand over the business to the next generation. The problem is, they're not sure where to start or how it all works. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Family Business Australia and the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman recently released an introductory guide to family succession planning, which highlights some of the bigger issues, including remuneration, ownership and roles. Greg Griffith is the CEO of Family Business Australia, which has been helping family businesses with succession planning for more than 2 decades. The key is to prepare as early as possible because, as Greg explains to Heather Dawson, a successful handover doesn't happen overnight.
A succession conversation and the successful transition from one generation next could take minimum 3 to 5 years. And the earlier you start having those conversations, the more likely that the success of transferring from one generation to the next. So it can take a long, long time to be able to do this. And the sooner they start thinking about it, the more likely it is to occur.
Okay, so what are some of the questions a business owner should ask him or herself when deciding whether succession is for them?
Yeah, I think the first question is there potential for the business to stay within the family and to be passed on from one generation to the next? I think the other question is the next generation even interested in wanting to be involved in the business? Certainly with modern technology today and the ability to branch out into all sorts of different areas, the desire might not be there for that generation to want it to take over. Is the family committed time-wise to the successful transfer from one generation to the next? As I said, it can take 3 to 5 years. It can bring tension. It can bring stress. It can bring anxiety. So are they willing and committed to doing that? Is there a positive relationship and dynamic between the family members? That's a really important question to ask, particularly the incumbents. And is the next generation actually ready to take over the business? They've got the skill set. We certainly know a number of family businesses who might have started with just a simple hammer and a nail, and all of a sudden now they're a $1 billion company. Is that next generation actually got the skills and the capability to step in and take over and run that business?
So what should they think about? Everybody would want the smoothest transition possible. So what should they think about to make that smooth transition?
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to it. We look at it as management transition and then ownership transition. And these are quite different. So from management, it's about allowing the family members to come into the business. And then the questions is, how do they come into the business? Do they come in at the top? Do they have to start at the bottom, work their way through? It allows, I think, the incumbents or the mum and dad to sort of step away from the day-to-day operations, allowing the next generation to come in and get a feel for the business, how it works, how it behaves, how it acts, how it interacts with all the other staff members who might be paid employees, allowing them to step back and allow the next generation to find their own way, but still have control of the business. And then the next side of it is the ownership side of things. It's actually how do you allow for the transition of ownership in terms of shares, assets, wealth from one generation to the next. So we sort of see management as the first step and then the ownership that sits behind that. I think what's really important when we get to that ownership side, what we find is a lot of family businesses are quite unsophisticated when it comes to actually how they actually work and behave as a family in a family enterprise. So setting up family charters or family constitution is really, really important. It's really that constitution sort of forms the basis of actually how the family will come together and talk, and not just come home and over roast and say, well, what are we going to do about succession, but actually formalise the process, how often they meet, what do they discuss, what do those conversations look like so they can actually act and behave appropriately when making some pretty big decisions. We have many advisors that are members of FBA, over 300. A lot of them are accredited, and they're not just your accountants, they're not just your lawyers. They actually really understand family governance and the ability to work with the family around setting up those constitutions. So if somebody's unaware about what does a constitution actually even mean, they should reach out to a professional advisor to seek some help and advice and guidance about setting one of those up. It's really, really important.
Because, let's be honest, problems can and do arise in family businesses, and probably because of the emotional fraughtness of it as well. So What are the big problems that can arise?
Yeah, well, there's conflicting systems out there. You've got your family system, which is proactive, emotional, relationship orientated, and you've got your business, which is competitive, objective and results orientated, and these can bring conflict between families. Some examples is it's deciding, for example, if you've got 3 or 4 children, who gets to run the business? Who takes over? And that can create conflict. Is Jimmy better than Joey? Why would Jimmy get the CEO job or the managing director job? That can create major angst. Or do they appoint all children to be the managing director, but then actually who gets to have a say about running? There's too many chiefs and not enough Indians type of approach. That can bring conflict. The shareholding is also, if you've got family working in the business already and other family members not working in the business, is it an equal share? There'll be some family members who might say, well, I'm in the business, so I should get a greater share of the ownership. So that can bring conflict. The next generation, where do they want to take the business? Your mum and dad potentially might have built this business from scratch. Their name's above the door. They obviously probably see a pathway that legacy continues on, but the next generation might actually have a different view about where they want to take the business. And the other one, which we see all the time, is, well, it's great, I'm in the business, it's the next gen, I've got ownership now, but mum and dad are still working in the business, when are they going to bugger off? And so we have next geners who are 60 years of age and still actually have mum and dad coming in every day to do work, and that can create conflict. So, very difficult.
But if the kids or other family members don't want to take over the family business, what options do owners have when they want to exit?
Sure. Look, it's a really, as I said, there's about $4 trillion worth of wealth about to transfer over the next 10 years. The baby boomers sort of hang up. So a lot of these decisions will come about where, can I successfully transition, or the kids don't? Look, there's some simple options out there. One, you just sell the business and wind it up. But there are other options out there. There's vertical integration with other family enterprises who might want to work together and their businesses complement each other really well. The other one is also an employee ownership scheme. We're seeing more and more of that, sort of almost like a cooperative in a lot of ways, where long-standing employees have an opportunity to buy in or get shares within the business so they can keep the legacy going. We do know with family enterprises, the loyalty of staff is far greater than in the corporate world, and so there's that real passion and bond, even with an employee within a family enterprise, to want to contribute and give back and be a part of it. There's obviously options there that they can potentially get involved. But normally, sometimes those become really difficult conversations, and just winding it up is one basic option. So,
okay. Well, for people who want to find out more, Family Business Australia has got a checklist, I understand. So what's that?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of things. So recently we launched an introductory guide to succession planning, which we did in conjunction with the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. That's a free downloadable document on our website, so familybusiness.org.au. A great first step to actually start thinking about succession. Again, thinking about 3 to 5 year timeline, you need to actually start thinking about and start educating yourself about some of the questions you need to start asking your own family about succession. So that's a really good guide. We have a diagnostic tool, so that's an opportunity there. It's about 30-odd questions you can go through. You give yourself a score of 1 to 10, and that really produces a traffic light report around, areas of concern, red, things that you need to, orange that you need to start having to think about, and green, which you're already on the pathway. It helps actually really guide some conversations with some advisors about, okay, well, here are my areas of concern. And then within Family Business Australia, we run a number of, we call them educational programs. We do a succession planning course. Again, that succession planning course, somebody's not going to be able to walk out of that and put a succession plan in place, but it opens their eyes up to succession planning, the difficulty, the conversations need to be had, what type of questions you need to talk to advisors about, what type of advisors might suit their business in terms of that transition. So there are many, many different programs. And the last one, we run a number of conferences. They're very, very successful. We call them peer-to-peer conferences. So we just don't get up there and preach. We actually have family businesses that get up there and they tell their war story, where they started, the pain points, mum and dad, brother and sister. And they're really quite exceptional because you look around the audience and you can see everybody almost nodding their head and going, oh my God, I'm not alone. I've got the same pain points. My dad's this, my brother's this, my daughter, my sister. So they're really, really powerful, and people sort of come along to those and get inspired about, wow, okay, I now need to have these conversations. So, there are many, many tools out there, but the first one is start having the conversation internally at home.
That was Family Business Australia CEO Greg Griffith. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more B Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily Podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.